We are going to start off by drawing our dog, and I'm going to show you a beginner level to drawing. So have no fear if you're not used to drawing. I'm really going to break it down into simple steps, and hopefully it'll be nice and easy for you and it won't cause you a bunch of anxiety. I know people get really stressed out when it comes to drawing, and it really doesn't have to be so complicated. The more you practice, the better you're going to get. I'm going to show you one drawing Beignet, and then I'm going to show you another dog because Beignet's legs are so short. I know that it might, I just want to show you a different dog as well. So we'll start off with Beignet. I am working on my iPad. You do not have to work on your iPad. You can do a couple different things. One, if you feel comfortable, just looking at the picture of your dog and then creating the shapes of it. I'll show you what I mean in a second, but you can do it just drawing it directly on your paper. Now, if you are drawing on watercolor paper, I suggest maybe doing a little sketch on just regular paper first, because if you are doing a lot of erasing, it can disrupt the texture of the paper, and we don't want that. So that's the first way you can do it. Another way is you can print out a picture of your dog and draw on top of it to kind of get the idea of what it's going to look like, and then draw that on your paper. And then another option, which is really nice because you don't have to print anything out, but I know this might not be an option for everybody. I'm using my iPad with Procreate, and I'm going to bring my images in and show you my method of drawing, how I kind of get all the shapes set up, and then I take that and I just draw directly on my paper. So let's start off with that. I'm going to show you this way because it's just easier and I can erase things, but you could do the same thing on an actual photo of your dog, or you could just look at your dog and see the shapes as well. If you are working on an iPad, you are going to want to add a layer on top. That way you can easily remove it if you make a mistake or anything like that. My picture of Beignet, and whenever I draw, if I feel like, obviously I've been drawing for a long time, but I still use this method sometimes when I am struggling or just, not sure how I'm going to be able to draw something. I break it into the most basic shapes. The first shape I see are these big triangle ears. Obviously, I'm right on top of this, but I wouldn't be on top of the image normally. I would be drawing it, but I just want to break it down into the most basic shape. So we have these ears that are like triangles with a little curve on the top. Again, I'm going to make my pen a different color so it's easier for you guys to see. Let's do like pink and make it bigger. Okay. I have these big triangle ears. I'm just starting with basic shapes, okay, you guys? You do the same thing. Then I have a circle for her face. Then we have another circle around her muzzle, and then another kind of circle around her nose. Again, her eyes are circular. Actually, I want to show you a different thing for the eyes. Okay, and then she's such a funny shape. She almost has like another triangle coming down here. And then her paws, I'm gonna do little kind of flattened circles. This one is kind of like a long circle. I know this seems so weird, and if I take away her image, it looks really funny, but it's going to be helpful for you. Then what I like to do is when I'm thinking about where their eyes are, I make just this little line that shows like the line where their eyes would be on. And then you can just do those as well. If they have any markings, just like lightly tap those in. Obviously I'm right on top of this and I'm tracing it. It's really easy to do that. But if you're just looking at your image, some things that can be helpful determining the proportions. For example, if I take my fingers and I go like this is how big her head is. Oops, I didn't know I had those shortcuts. This is how big her head is. And that's actually about the same size as her chest. And I would use that same method. You could break out a ruler if you want to. if I was drawing it on a piece of paper and I might be struggling, being like, oh, the head looks way bigger, this is a great way to kind of understand the proportions. Same thing with her ears. Her ears are the same from her nose to the top of her head, and that can help you determine how big you want to make her head as well. This isn't going to be, okay, this is helpful as the base, but I want to draw her a little bit nicer. So after I do that, what I would do was, I'm going to just take this and bring it up here. Okay, so this is helpful for you guys. Now I have this like pig looking thing over here. I'm going to grab black ink. I have a new layer, and I'm going to start sketching with more detail. Obviously, this needs to connect over here. So I'm just gonna bring that in, and then her ears, I want them to be more round, of course. And this is a phase where you kind of bring in those more finer details. Her nose is a kind of a different shape, and then her little muzzle here. And then again, connecting her to her chest, and then her chest comes out a little bit more. And I'm just making these little short strokes because she's so fluffy. And then connecting kind of with a curve line to her little paws. And again, curved line to her little paws. And usually they have this little curve right here on their paws. You can't even see her other leg over here. Oh, I guess we lost part of this leg while we were doing that. But she has her little drummy hanging out back here. She looks so silly when you draw her. And then for the eyes, I am going to make that line. That's kind of helpful. And I like to do the eyes kind of cartoony when I'm doing this style of painting. So I do it like that, and then her markings coming in, and any kind of markings that you see. Ones that are, that like define what your dog looks like. Oops, I made that line, and then I'm actually gonna go over it because I don't want this line to actually be in my painting. Okay, we're gonna get rid of that. Then she has some lines coming down here. We wanna make sure to get all the markings that make your dog unique. You definitely wanna include those because that'll help you be like, oh, that's my dog when you look at it. So think about those unique markings. And the ears. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and erase our original shapes. And as you can see, it's starting to look more like her. It's definitely not perfect, but we're not going for perfect. We're going for something that looks similar. Okay, and now we have the basic like shape and outline of our dog. She looks so funny. I'll show you another dog just in case you're like, that dog looks so weird. She does have short legs, so she does look a little funky. This is my friend's dog. I'm gonna turn down the opacity just a little bit. And we're gonna do the same method again, just because I wanna reiterate the shapes. She has, her ears go down, but they're still kind of triangles. Let me switch to pink so you guys can see it better. But she still has these triangle ears. So those are the basic shape triangles. Triangle, then a round head. Then she has this like kind of big muzzle right here. And then again, around for the nose, the line for the eyes. Her legs are very long. So I would start with some ovals down here and then almost just rectangles, kind of at an angle. We're gonna add more detail in the next phase. And then this chest, I tend to do a lot of circles. To me, this is more circular. another circle down here. She has another paw back here, a paw back here. Okay. So we have our basic shapes of what little May looks like. Then we are going to sketch her from here. Coming in with my black pen on a new layer. And I'm looking at her and I'm going to fill in the details, right? We have the basic shape and layout and where everything is. And now she's really curly haired. So I'm using this kind of motion. I know I'm drawing on an iPad, but you guys can do this with your pencils as well. Just kind of nice and fluffy. Her ears really attached to her face. So there's no gap in between here. And she doesn't really have any kind of like firm line right here. It kind of all connects. So I'm not going to draw that, but I am going to draw the side coming in here. And then her nose, make it more defined. Her little like mustache almost. And then she has a little chin. The eyes, again, I like those cartoony eyes. Something that can be really helpful for you is knowing where their eyes are on their head. Using that same method, you could either use a ruler or your hands. And I mean, I know because I was exactly over this photo that this is the right proportion, but if you're drawing directly from looking at a photo, you might say, okay, there's this much space between the top of her head and her eyes. And that's about the same distance from the bottom of her eyes to her chin. That can be really helpful for you when you're trying to figure out if it's the correct dimensions. Now she has her little shoulder coming back over here. And again, I'm just kind of following this line down her body. For these, we don't want them to be this stick straight, so we're using that little curve or to show that it's nice and fluffy. Then have her little paw come out. And then this one obviously curves, it's not straight. And then of course, we are going to have so many details with all this very fluffy fur, but that will be something that we cover later. You can put a little bit of it in as a nice reminder. Our basic shapes were super helpful, but now that we remove it, we have what she looks like and we are ready to paint. A couple other things that can be helpful for you is sometimes you can use a grid. If you have a photo that you can draw on, you can make a grid over it. You probably want to use a ruler so the lines are nice and straight. This is just really basic to show you really quick. This can help you with dimensions. What you do is you make a grid. I would say, depending on the size of your photo, maybe like 1/2 inch or 1 inch squares. This is helpful because it breaks down where the dot, these lines are way too thick for this. They should be a lot thinner, but it breaks down things. So this can be helpful sometimes. So you would draw this square and then you would draw what's in this one. And sometimes that is helpful for people to be able to break down an image instead of seeing it as this one daunting thing that you have to draw. So that's another method that you can use. I personally really like the shape method. I find it really helpful. And as you can see, we started out with our basic shapes and then we slowly put the dog together based on those. Okay, now that you have your pet drawn, make sure you've transferred it to your watercolor paper and we can get started with painting.